I was asked recently how stable the mobile workbench was if you wanted to do planing. Well, what I've got set up here is just a support underneath for this bit of framing that I'm planing off, and I'm using the bench as a backstop. And you can see you can plane away all day with absolutely no problem at all. Now when you're finishing something like this where you've got some awkward bits of detail that you want to sand, I've made up a little sanding block. On this side it's got some, I think it's 240 grit, and on this side it's got some 120 grit. And for an awkward thing like this bit of moulding here, I can get in at the correct angle and sand away. And this doesn't get terribly clogged up. You just give it a tap every now and again, or use the end of your vacuum across it, and it'll keep it fairly clear. Well, it's time now to use these rather nice mouldings that I'd created a little while ago to go on the bottom of each of the pedestal units. This is one of the pedestals. It's upside down, and so the moulding is going to go around here like this. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to use the Capex saw, and I've got this set up at the moment so it's at a 45-degree angle this way, and that would be suitable for doing one side of the mitre, and I will then flip it over to the other side to do the other side. The reason I'm doing that is that by cutting the wood such that the smart side is towards me when I'm doing the cutting, I'm going to leave a better edge here. Now the first thing I've done is to check that everything is nice and straight, and I've got this straight edge which I got from Veritas, Lee Valley, and everything is absolutely spot on. I did have to take a tiny piece off, I think it was on this piece or one of these two side pieces where it was slightly bowed, and I don't know why that was, but anyway it came off very easily with my super duper low angle jack plane. Right, okay, so here we go. I'm going to start by doing the back piece, and I'm going to make one mitre cut. I'm going to then offer it up, mark it, and then do the other one. Now before I start the sawing process, I have actually pre-finished with an initial coat of Osmo Poly X on these mouldings. It's partly to protect them, but it's also partly to ensure that I've got the sanding right on some of these little bits of moulding where the writer cutter roughed up a little bit of wood, you know, little defect in the wood or whatever it was. So I've made sure that all of that is absolutely perfect. Put a coat of Poly X on to protect it, and now I'm ready to saw up. So this is set at 45 degrees, easy to do. Now, one of the things you do have to remember with the Capex saw is that when you set it at an angle, you've got to adjust your sacrificial fences to allow the saw blade to pass through, otherwise you might be disappointed. Stop the saw whilst it's down, move the piece of wood away, and that way you help to guarantee the most perfect edge. And I don't know if you can see just how beautifully smooth that is. There's my first mitre. The bottom is nearest to me. I'm now going to offer this up in approximately the position that I want so that I can mark it. The mitre will pass through the corner here and here. So back at the saw, I need to move the saw over to the other 45-degree position, which is there. It clicks in nicely, lock it down, and then remember to open up the sacrificial fence slightly at the back there. I'm going to turn my lasers on so I get an approximate line of where I want to cut. My pencil mark is there. I'm just going to move this along, and I'm going to cut it a fraction over size. Now at this stage, if you wanted, you could clamp this part here to hold it absolutely still if you're not happy to leave it as it is, but I'm quite happy to just go for it. And remember, stop the saw and then take the piece of wood away. And here I have my first piece. I'm just going to check it. Right, you can see I'm a little bit too long, so I've put a pencil mark just here, and I'm now going to take that back to the saw to trim it a little further. Now you can probably see I've put some screw holes, they're countersunk screw holes in the underside here. There are 3, one in the middle and one at either end. I'm just checking the position to make sure it's absolutely spot on. That's there and that's there. I can now screw these in. Now you've got to absolutely make sure at this stage that this is the bottom, because if you get that wrong, it's a great disappointment. And I'm now just going to finish these off by hand. So that's good. Right, ready for the next one. So we've done that cut, and I can now release this and turn the table round to 45 degrees on the opposite side and lock it down. And I'm now ready to make my other cut. Now the Capex is so good at doing angle work. It is absolutely brilliant. And you can see by these 2 offcuts, I just pop them together like that. Absolutely super duper. So the Capex is the mitre saw of choice. Let the saw come to a stop, and then the piece is ready for fitting. And when you're cutting to a pencil line, you can turn the lasers on, and then you can get some pretty accurate cuts relying on the laser lines. And there are 2 lines, one for either side of the saw blade. When you're doing a very fine trim with the Capex, you can cut some very nice thin slivers. Just look at that. And that's perfectly cut. Absolutely spot on. Beautiful. And the way I've done these screw holes is I've used a 10mm Forstner bit first, gone down about 5mm. That provides the countersink. And then I've gone through with a 5mm bit, ordinary drill bit, all the way through. So that's that. I'm now going to fix this in place. I'm going to use some glue, and I'm going to use some screws. I'm not gluing along this surface, so I'm making it such that the whole plinth could be removed if required. I've just put a coat of Osmo Poly-X on these, and I'm just wiping off the excess with a little piece of this paper that I keep in the workshop, and I'm rather pleased actually, and I'll give that at least one more coat of Poly-X before it's finished.